have my tea, and I have the full list of books that I DNF'd in 2019. Some of these I actually despised, and then some of them just weren't good enough for me to want to devote the time when I have over 500 books on my TBR. But either way, they somehow made it to my DNF list, and I'm going to rant about them now. I love tea. I really don't want to spill it because then I would be very sad, and that's a waste of tea, and I love it too much, so. Alright, we are good. I'm going to be going in chronological order from when I read them in 2019. You will notice at the end of the year, I start DNFing a lot of books. I have not had a great time with reading lately. But starting from the beginning, we have The Well-Tempered Clavicle by Piers Anthony. How many times have I brought up how much I hate this book this year on this channel? This is part of the Xanth series, which is a fantasy series that I really loved growing up. There are a lot of books in the series. I think this is number 38, and I had read all of the other ones up to this point, and I just wanted to continue in the series, and I absolutely hated this book so much I was ready to throw it across the room. There is no subtlety whatsoever in the storytelling. It's very formulaic from all of the other books previously, and the foreshadowing is very hit you over the head with this is what's going to happen in the future. The writing was terrible. The sentence structure was really awful. It was like a 5-year-old wrote it. And the dialogue was super cringy. And to top it all off, there was so much unnecessary sexualization of every little thing. So, oh god, it pissed me off so much. I was so upset and disappointed because I loved this series. This is a series that got me into fantasy, and I wanted to love it so much. And I really did not. So I will be dropping this series. I am not going back to it. I will keep my memories preserved of the first couple books and just forget that the rest of it exists. Next up is Empress Orchid by Anchee. This is a historical fiction retelling of one of the empresses of China, which is really interesting to me, but the writing in this book is absolutely awful. It was like it was trying to make a textbook into a personal narrative, but not doing a very good job of it at all. The main character felt so very distant. There were really weird interjections of trying to explain motivations behind certain actions that just felt really insincere. Plus there were time skips because I guess it was supposed to be her telling the story of her past. So then she'd make some comments about oh, this is where this started and led to this other thing way in the future that we're not at yet. And it was so confusing and so just weird choices in the writing in general. And as much as I wanted to learn about Chinese history, this was not the way I was going to do it because it was just really painful. I was reading this as part of the Asian Readathon, and because I DNF'd it, I wanted to pick something up to replace it, and I ended up picking up Man Tiger by Eka Kurniawan. And unfortunately, I also ended up DNFing this, not because it was bad, but it wasn't what I was looking for exactly. It's kind of a magical realism, cultural literature sort of book set in Indonesia, and I think it just felt a little bit too intellectual for what I was looking for. It feels like the kind of story that you want to sit down and analyze as part of a class, because I'm sure there's a bunch of really important cultural significance to everything, but I am not familiar with it, and it was just kind of confusing for me, and I couldn't really connect to the characters because it would jump around this entire village because there was some event, I think someone murdered someone, and they were going through all these different people in the village and their reactions to it. So it was really hard to get to know any of the characters and connect with them in any meaningful way, so I just wasn't really interested in it. And I didn't think I was going to enjoy it just because it's not something that I want to think too hard about when I don't have that much background in it to start with. So I ended up DNFing this as well. My next DNF was a book that seemed to be really popular in 2015. At least I saw it in bookstores everywhere on the recommended table. And that's The Little Paris Bookshop by Nina George. I'm pretty sure this is translated from French. And it's about an old man who runs a bookstore that he kind of likens to an apothecary, where he prescribes books as remedies. That sounded super cute, but what you actually got in this book was a guy just sighing over his affair that he had years ago with a married woman. And there was no other depth of character at all. All of the characters were not interesting, and I was so sick of him just going, oh, I miss her. Oh, I can't open this room because there's too many memories of her. Oh, I can't even say her name. It's just, No. I couldn't handle it. It was so annoying, and the plot moved nowhere. Nah. There was also something really awkward about the writing where it has this very, like, calming Paris vibe, and then he would randomly think, cock. Excuse me? It was very jarring. And this is starting to be around the later half of the year, probably around September-ish, when I just have a streak of DNFs and bad books. And now, coming to a YA fantasy that is very beloved, it's The Last Magician by Lisa Maxwell. I did not get on with this book at all. It's set in New York about a girl who needs to steal a book back in time, which is very, very interesting because you get both like thieves and magic and heists mixed with historical New York, which is just so cool. But other than that, nothing else was good. I love the world, I love the magic. That's gonna be a very common thing in a lot of the books on this list. I love the setup of it, and I don't like the characters at all. It feels a little bit too young to YA for me specifically. I was really annoyed by the main character and her very overconfident personality. It was very tropey, and the plot is predictable and yet also really convoluted. I ended up reading spoilers because I wanted to know why so many people love this book and they're so shocked by it. And it's because the plot twists are pretty much ridiculous, even though they still get you to the point that you predicted in the beginning. So that was a really weird combination of things. And I also had some problems with the writing where it was trying to be super poetic and then it just ended up not making any sense at all. So I'm pretty glad I didn't continue with this book. I think the third book is supposed to be coming out this year and a lot of people are looking forward to it, and I'm super happy for them. I'm glad they enjoy it. It's just not my cup of tea. Speaking of tea, time for more tea. So good. So the next two I'm going to talk about together because they're written by the same author, and that's A Lying Witch and A Time of Kings by Odette C. Bell. A Lying Witch was about a psychic who learns that magic is real and she is cursed for some reason, and then she needs a magical Scottish bodyguard. Yeah. And then A Time of Kings is set in space, and the way that kings are made in this world is they are stored in the memories of certain like sleepwalkers, dreamwalkers or something, and so they can bestow the power of the kings in their mind upon a person and then they become the king, which is so interesting. And there's a lot of cool things you can do with like power dynamics in that, but the writing was just not good enough. There was pretty much everything wrong with these books. The writing is obnoxious with really bad metaphors and similes. The pacing is atrocious, and the editing is non-existent. All of that combined kind of makes for a bad storytelling experience, in addition to tropey characters and cliche plots that are super predictable. A Time of Kings definitely did have a more developed and complex plot than A Lying Witch, but everything else was still so mediocre that it wasn't really worth continuing in. The next book has my most hated main character of all time, and that's Seven Blades in Black by Sam Sykes. This girl pissed me off. She was so cocky, so full of herself, like she was the best damn thing that ever happened, and it got on my nerves. I don't even know how to describe this book because I don't really know what it's supposed to be about, but it seems to be like a revenge story with different kinds of magic and war. It was really bad. I read so much of this book and I still don't know what it's about. Again, the world is really interesting. There's a lot to it, a lot to explore, but I was not going to deal with this main character's voice to explore that world. Plus, the plot wasn't really that interesting to me. It wasn't really going anywhere, and I just couldn't stand her narration at all. So I decided to stop this. I really did want to continue in it because it seemed like a lot of fun, but I couldn't deal. And then probably the most disappointing book on this list is Off to Be the Wizard by Scott Meyer. This is very disappointing because it was on my list of series that I wanted to start that no one had talked about before, and no one has talked about it because it's not very good. It follows a guy who finds out that reality is actually just a computer program, so he can make himself technically have magic by hacking the code. And he very quickly gets himself in trouble and has to run away to medieval England in order to pass himself off as a wizard. I loved the sound of magical programming. That's like right up my alley, but there were just too many things that went wrong. The plot was very slow and yet predictable, which just means it takes forever to get to where you know it's going to go, and that's really frustrating. The characters are really bland. I felt absolutely nothing for them. I was not scared that they were in danger at all. And then the humor that's supposed to be throughout this book never clicked. It was not my kind of humor. I didn't find it funny at all, and I was just really annoyed because I liked the concept. I didn't like the execution. And then a book that I just picked up on a whim when I saw it at my library, which ended up not being a good decision, was Press Start to Play. And this is an anthology of sci-fi short stories around gaming. And after Off to Be a Wizard didn't really work out for me, I wanted to see if I could find something else with sci-fi gaming aspects. And this just wasn't really the right thing. I don't normally read anthologies. I think this is the second one I've ever read, and I just didn't like any of the stories. I read 10 of them because I kept thinking, oh, it's a short story collection. It's all different authors, so maybe one of them will work for you later on. Just because you didn't like the first ones doesn't mean you won't like the rest of them. And I got 10 stories in and I was like, none of these are working for me. I don't care about the characters. The plots didn't really seem interesting. Nothing at all was holding my attention, and I just decided to give up because it didn't seem to be worth it. It also had a lot of really big authors in it. There was a story by Holly Black and by Shauna Maguire, and they were okay, but still not very great, so I just didn't want to finish this book. And then the last book of the year that I ended up DNFing was The Snow Queen by Joan D. Vinge. If you watched my Vlogmas, you will know that I was struggling with this book for a while. It's a hard political sci-fi set in a world with like summer people and winter people, and there's problems with technology and something I don't know how to explain it. I was so confused the whole time, and that was part of the problem I had with it. The world was really complex and had a really detailed hierarchy system that I couldn't really figure out very well. And then some of the writing was confusing as well. There were various parts of exposition that I just didn't understand just because of the wording, and it was really weird and kind of a little frustrating. Add again that I didn't care for any of the characters, and so I had no interest in this book. It was just making me upset and not at all wanting to pick it up, so I stopped picking it up and I didn't finish it. So those are all of the books that I did not finish in 2019. There were quite a lot. I don't think I've ever DNF'd this much in a year ever. I don't know what was happening, especially toward the end of the year, where I just was not liking anything I picked up. I don't know if that's on me or on the books, but it kind of put me in a reading slump, and I have not been reading very much lately, unfortunately, but I feel like I'm starting to get it back, so we will see. I would be very interested to know how many books you DNF'd in 2019, so please let me know that in the comments, and I will see you later. Bye!